limo in my double cup, sipping up on the potion. Fuck all of that player hating, keep all that commotion. Me and my partners about the dollars, never been about no whole shit. FTP across my chest, banging to the...
What is up, guys? It is your boy Alex from Clueless Media. Today we got another video. I'm sorry I did not post last week because I was not able to. It kind of had a rough week, and you know, can you blame the guy? Come on, I worked 6 days at work, like I said. But anyways, that doesn't matter. Today I kind of got an exciting video for you guys. We got my daily abused piece of crap car, and it's my 2003 IS300. I've already made a video on this, but I kind of want to get more in depth into it on if you want to buy one. I kind of want to give you so far my feedback on it and if I like it or not. Kind of like my old Lexus video, you guys killed it on that one. You guys got 9,000 views on that, which is absolutely amazing, and I appreciate you guys. I was hoping you guys can look at this car and kind of take a look on if it's really worth it still in 2023. Let's get to it. But before we get to it, guys, make sure you hit that like, subscribe button, share, whatever you need to do, comment. Alright, so the first thing you guys want to keep in mind is these things love gas like a mofo. So if you guys buy one of these, always expect to carry at least a jerry can in the back full of premium, or just keep in mind to always have your gas station and your maps loaded on speed dial, because these things love their gas. It probably doesn't help that I have two sensors that are bad, but at the same time, it kind of varies. I mean, I kind of love how they don't work, because on the Toyotas, if your check engine light doesn't work, you don't get traction control or vehicle stability, which is perfect for drifting. It's great. But it's also a killer, and you know, if you actually need it and you don't want to drift and you start sliding sideways without you wanting to, but that doesn't matter. Moving on to the next thing, you want to be careful with these things. If you really want to buy one, you want to make sure you either know about cars or kind of know about the structure of these cars, or if you have a buddy, it helps, because these things do like to rust, especially in the northern area of Minnesota or anywhere up north in the States. A common place for this thing to rust is basically the bottom of the rockers. Very, very common. These like to rust out because they have these little pockets on here, and they get salt and everything in between there, and of course they start salting out and rusting out. Another spot would be this quarter panel. You always want to be careful with this too. This is why, like I said, you guys got to do your research on it and make sure you're buying the right car, because sometimes you buy a clean car and you happen to see the bottom of it and it's completely rusty, and that's what you really want to stay away from. Another thing would be oil consumption. These things like to drink a lot of oil. So like I said, if you know what you're doing, these things will drink a whole quart within a whole week and a half, and that's perhaps if you're getting a little happy on the pedal. Make sure you always have a bottle of oil in your trunk or somewhere in the car. Kind of a big thing too, because over time, I mean, that's any car, your oil rings, they get old, and you know, it's not always the best thing. Moving on to, I think number 3 or 4 is gonna be sticky dash. These things have a tend to get sticky dash, and what I mean is, if you come in, I'll show you here. Basically, the interior of these, they always like to get sticky. And that's because if you leave it out in the sun, this whole part can tend to get a little bit sticky, and it's very disgusting in the summer. I'm telling you, when it's disgusting, it's disgusting. I can put some photos up, but this entire dash cluster area gets full of like this residue from the factory, and I don't know what their deal is with that. I think they tried changing it. It really does suck. Another thing is too to keep in mind is when you're buying this car, you want to make sure you have other IS300 buddies at least, or have a good place to get IS300 parts, because these things are definitely not getting any newer. Of course, you're definitely gonna have to start investing on more money because they like money. Parts are getting more and more rare for this thing. That's another con about these cars. You can't really get lower control arms or upper control arms at parts stores anymore. It's not as easy, considering it is old, and also it's a Lexus, which is basically a fancy Toyota, but at the same time, it's Lexus, so everything's gonna be different. And of course, you can't try going to the dealership and they might have it, but they also like to discontinue things too, so you gotta be careful with that as well. So a big thing too is maintenance is a huge thing on these guys. So not just changing the oil, not just doing the diff, basically doing the timing belt and water pump on these. So basically, it's very important to change these every, I believe, 150,000 miles. You have to change the water pump and timing belt. I can't tell you if this thing has been done yet, but we'll find out sooner or later. I hope to God that it's already been done, but I did check the belt and that was good, so that's really what matters. Failed to mention too, the ball joints on these guys, if you do not change them, your wheel will fall off. I promise you, it's very common on these IS300s, so you want to be careful with that. The ball joints fail, and they, like any other part, they fail and they need to be replaced, and if they don't, it can be a safety measure. Another thing would be heat problems. These things are notoriously known for heat problems. It can be the heater core, it can be the thermostat. In my case, I do have heat problems. I don't have any heat at the moment, so it kind of does suck right now, but I just haven't had the time to go around and fixing it. I mostly think that it's the heater core because, I mean, I drive the car all day long and it still gets no heat, but once in a blue moon when I'm out beating on it, I get a glimpse of heat, and that's how I know maybe the heater core is clogged. And I don't think it's the thermostat because it doesn't take that long to warm up, but at the same time when it's warm, you think if it's a thermostat, eventually the car will get warm enough to produce heat, but not in this case. But let's get right into the pros of owning this car. So a good pro, or a couple pros about owning this car would probably have to be it's rear-wheel drive. If you want to get into a cheap car, something to learn how to drift, something to have fun with, if you try your front-wheel drive Ford Focus, these things are absolutely perfect. So if you want something to have an LSD with it like mine, you want to look for models that are 2000 and up. Those automatically came with LSD differentials, which means both wheels are spinning at the same time, which means you can have donuts like this. And that's where all the fun begins in these cars. They're notoriously made into drift cars. People even take the motors out of these just because of how great the motors are. People turbo them, you name it. Drifters use anything on this car so they can make it into an ultimate drift missile, just like these cars. Talking about the motor, basically the 2JZ GE, this is the non-turbo one. All IS300s came with a non-turbo model. In Japan, they actually came with the Beams engine, Beams 3000, I believe so. So it's a totally different engine in Japan, and it's also called the Toyota Altezza. It's basically what you get out of these things. In my case, it's basically a stock 2JZ, stock intake, stock everything basically. I'm not too worried about aftermarket on this thing. You can get a turbo kit. You basically have to kind of mount it right here, and you'd have to sometimes relocate your ABS module. But that's if you're doing all that stuff, and obviously you can do all the research if you'd like to. But one thing to keep in mind, these things are really nice, but when it comes to spark plugs, you would have to take your whole intake off, and yeah, take your whole intake off just to do the plugs, which are all in the middle because of course it is an inline 6. That's something to keep in mind with these things. Those cars, their engines are pretty good, but the echo is insane in here. Sorry guys, by the way, I hope there's no echo in the video, but anyways, a cool thing about these as well, and a pro on this, is basically the transmission. These things are bulletproof. They're not glass. Some of the manual ones are kind of bad, so you want to keep an eye on those, and if you do find a manual one, keep that for a long time because they're getting more and more rare at this point. And same with the wagons. Those things are super cool, but also really rare. Kind of not really rare as the manuals, but they're pretty rare. But also the differentials, anything on the bottom of the car is going to be good. Basically, same with the suspension, is going to be decent from the factory as long as you do a good maintenance check on it, ball joints, tie rods, like any other car, so nothing to be too worried about. But yeah, the differential is good. There's nothing much to really worry about on these things. That's the cool thing about owning one of these. You can kind of buy it and beat the crap out of it and not worry too much about it as long as you're caught up with maintenance, which is a big thing on these cars. Another cool thing about this thing is this thing has 5x114 hub patterns, so you can literally put any wheel you want on this car. The choices are unlimited, to be honest, at this point. You can go to anywhere and get wheels for this thing. It's 5x114.3, and the hub bore, I believe, is 60.1 millimeters, if that helps anyone out there with spacers. But that's basically what you're going to get into with this platform. It's a really good platform with wheels wise, so you don't have to worry about that 5x120 or something really weird like those other platforms. Oh yeah, another cool thing about this car is, I forgot to show you guys in the motor, but I talked a little bit about the turbo thing. You can turbo these things for under $3,000, believe it or not. It's gonna be a small CX Racing turbo kit, and I think the kit's like $2,500, don't quote me, but I'll put it up on the screen for you guys. But that comes with everything. It comes with the turbo, intercooler, lines, anything you need to basically boost this thing. So you wouldn't have much PSI either way, so probably if anything like 5 or 6 PSI, but that's still enough to have noises and even boosts. And of course, last but not least, with these cars, it's always great to keep in mind, if you're gonna be driving in the winter, make sure you get some good winter tires, because these things do handle amazing with winter tires. You don't need to be a great driver to really get in this thing and just drive it in the winter. So as long as you have winter tires on the car, that's kind of a key thing with any car, in my opinion. If it's rear wheel drive, all wheel drive, front wheel drive, if you have good tires, winter tires, then you are set. You just gotta have basic, you know, basic brain cells to know what you're doing, and that's basically it. Like last year when I had 2 years ago when I had my white one, I had cheap winter tires on it, and it handled amazing. Nothing wrong with it. It was absolutely great in the winter, so no complaints on that. Another cool thing about these actually is they got premium audio in them, and the cool thing is they have paddle shifters in a way. So back in the day, they had these down and ups in the back, and that was great back in 03. But nowadays, obviously, you get those, you know, fancier ones. But you can go as fancy as you want with the newer ones. But if you want, you can also put it in manual mode in the center dash, or you can go 3, 2, 1 on the console here. But that's more or less made for towing. Yeah, basically that's gonna wrap today's video up. If you guys did like the video, make sure you guys like, comment, share, subscribe. And to answer the question, is the IS300 still worth it in 2023? In my opinion, I'd say it is. It is completely up to you guys if you want to follow what I say. But if you ask any of your IS300 friends, these things are totally fun to have. And I promise you, you'll have a blast. And I'm 22 years old, and I still enjoy having the little rear wheel drive spin on these things, even as an adult. Even when I was 16 years old, I had my white one, and that thing was a blast too. Actually, 18 years old. I have big plans coming. I know I've been saying that for the past 2 videos, but just keep in mind, I did. So just make sure you stay tuned for the next video. So like I said, I'm sorry for not posting last week, and I'll promise to keep it up with you guys. I just hope that you guys have interest in it. Anyways, deuces, guys.